All right, everybody ready? All right. I call the August meeting to order. Ellen and John are joining us by Zoom, so we welcome them. Hopefully they'll hear us tonight. First order of business is just to approve the minutes of our last meeting.
So moved. I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Very expensive.
Treasurer's report.
Starting balance 14,137.24, two deposits. This is starting balance 27,805, three checks. Remaining balance 26,163. And on the bottom are unpaid invoices that'll go out tomorrow. So remaining balance is 23,798.
Any questions? Do we have a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, so go over to the solicitor. We'll start there.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're still in the middle of working on various ordinances. Later this month, there will be municipal hearings and approvals of the Riding Academy revisions. It's all been advertised. So I think you know your appropriate dates. At the wireless, small wireless communications facilities. We did receive a response to some questions that Chester had raised about how we should be drafting this and what the numeration should be. That came in last night. I shared it with Chester this morning. I'm not sure it's been circulated beyond that. But the question that sort of is a logistical one is whether we should attempt to enumerate everything our JMZO, or have this as a separate independent ordinance with numeration that's already provided by Mr. Winston. And I think that's a discussion item. I don't have a real preference for that, but I know there are issues involved in doing it either way. This is a fairly elaborate ordinance. So we can do it either way. To try to make the enumeration fit into our existing standard will take a little bit more time, a little bit more cost. But it may be worthwhile considering that we have all the other ordinances at this point will be look basically be in the same format and the same enumeration. Going forward, I'm not sure what ordinances will look like. We don't have any other ordinances. I mean, new ordinances. There may be new ordinances coming down the road dealing with new directions from the state or the feds, but they're not in front of us now. So the question is, how do we want to handle this? Just a good opinions.
Yeah, I mean, my thought is, we have a zoning ordinance that lays out all the different uses, and then specifically in section 803, we have all the uses delineated from A through L, which was my thought was, and what Joe had proposed is just to scrap the whole section and then created a section 80, or delete the wireless thing and then start a new section 804, which is kind of like an orphan section. So we've kind of like been mixing up uses. We have uses in 803, 99.9% of the uses are in 803.
Oh, but this.
Except for the one,
Yeah.
the wireless and stuff. So in thinking about the last time we did this, we got the same thing. We got a standalone ordinance that looked very much the same way, and then we kind of talked about it, and then we all decided to go say, yeah, we wanted to make sure it was integrated with the ordinance. So that's where we were, last time we went through this process. I just want to make sure we don't get into a situation where. You know, it doesn't look like a zoning ordinance or it's kind of like, or it looks like it's not a solid use the way everything else is and, you know. We ought to just keep the format we have.
I don't disagree with that.
I think it's good to be consistent and you understand it, I mean,
You only have to look one place for it.
yeah.
Well, it'll be right next to the boat list. Proximity will be there,
Yeah.
but it will look different because the numbers will not be what you're used to looking at for uses and all the other, some of the other details will be in different places.
Well, I'll tell you that I did contact the codifier to see what they would do if we sent them that thing, and they says. They would make it look like the rest of the ordinance. So even if we send them all those numbers, they're gonna come up, they're gonna be back with letters.
What does the codifier charge to do that work? Maybe they could do us a draft and we can see what they turn up. That's something that happens, or they have ever engaged with their municipalities that way?
No, they don't, yeah, I don't
You
think.
send it to them and they codify and that's the end of the story.
I mean, because they, you know, they basically work off of what they have, you have. But they have, you know, they have a set format, but, you know. Letters, numbers, whatever, and so maybe they do a simple replace the format, I don't know, but. But they would, you know, they would change it to look similar to our ordinance, except it would, you know. The question is, are you gonna let them do it or us do it, you know, so it's.
We can certainly do it. That's not the issue. We can have it probably done hopefully by the next meeting if that's what we need to do.
Just a real quick question. So for this use, we're talking about just deleting like an amendment to delete what's currently there, like section whatever, replace it with this. And then in terms of the numbering, just going through this whole draft to make it consistent with how it's numbered. Okay, I just wanted to make sure so if the codifier were to do it, they don't have different number, I guess the version of the ordinance that we have, like that I have printed out, is probably from the codifier, right? Most likely. Okay, I'm answering my own question. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I mean, my only concern is that if we just give them everything with the numbers, you know. Where, you know, they're gonna interpret it and they may interpret it right or wrong.
Yeah, we need to have a cover letter that explains what we've done and what we want them to do.
I have is that in the draft ordinance, there are definitions, you know, that were written into that section of the ordinance, but we also have the definition section in the zoning ordinance. So if we're gonna have definitions, they ought to be moved over into section 200 or whatever that number is. You know, just at the end, so.
You see, the only alternative would be to add some kind of language in the old ordinance that refers to this new section. And I'm not sure that really resolves the problem. Because the people are so wondering about, well, why is this over here? Why is it not over here? Does everything coordinate correctly? I just don't know how people look at this stuff if they're not really that familiar with ordinances to begin with. And one thing for solicitors to be looking at it. Another thing for supervisors and planning commission members to be looking at it and not particularly be that familiar with it and have some questions that they really can't answer. That would be my concern. No. I don't hear much. Anybody have anything else to suggest about it? If not, I will just think that the consensus is that we should make it conform.
Yeah, I would agree with
Got it. Okay.
We made the last solicitor do that.
It's not personal.
No. That was Mary Emily's firm was the one that got stuck with doing it the last time.
Yes, well, it's only 5 more months of this our term. So I feel bad for whoever's picking up the pieces after we leave. Okay, as to part, let's see, the modify the joint agreement to codify current practices. That's been sent out to the townships for review. It's got to be put on their various agendas for the planning commission and its supervisors to do something with it. The electric charging stations, I think we're drafting it still after the last conversation we had about that. Some of the work has been done, but we've been sort of swamped by this wireless communications ordinance. It's taken up a lot of our time to get it where we are. So we'll get that done by the next meeting for sure. The billboard use, it's been reviewed by Newtown Township Planning Commission. Our concern was the way it was drafted, the only place that billboard use would be allowed would be in Newtown Township in one or two particular areas. And it wouldn't fit in either in Wrightstown or in Upper Makefield. And we asked that each of the other townships find some small place that you would accept these kinds of bigger. Just let us know, give us, yeah, I know you do. Just let us know what it is so we can put it in the ordinance so that there's more equity in all of that.
We like Wrightstown spot.
Yeah,
They don't want Newtown spot either.
So speaking of billboards, there is I don't know what you would call it, looks like a DOT sign with all that crazy construction.
No.
Ellen, do you hear us?
I do
John?
now, yes.
Okay, great. Back.
What's the last thing you heard?
Yeah, what was the last thing you?
A long time ago.
Well,
John, when did it freeze?
I'm not sure you're talking about billboards. Maybe you can restart that.
It's real possible, yeah, that's where it was. And I asked the Wrightstown and Upper Makefield providers with a location where a billboard would be acceptable in their municipalities. So it doesn't.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm asking that again. So if you could take notes about that, or if you prefer, I'll send you an email tomorrow about that. So we can get that finished. And finally, the expansion of non-conforming structure as to height. That's open and forwarded to all municipalities. Wrightstown has already approved it. It has to get on the agendas in Upper Makefield and Newtown Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors for final approval.
Hey, I think we're scheduled to have planning commission second meeting this month. And hopefully address two of these,
Okay.
the joint agreement and the non-conforming structures.
We can add them onto our agenda.
And that's my solicitor's report.
All right, so we were gonna take most of today's meeting to talk about the wireless communications ordinance. You guys all had an opportunity to look at it, review it,
Fall asleep.
fall asleep.
Yeah.
Anybody want to take a shot at what we like, don't like? Need?
Well, I have a couple of questions. You know what? I apologize. I don't have a printed out copy. I was looking at it on my computer and then I thought it was the same one from last month and I thought I had it, but I couldn't find it before the meeting. But I have just some general questions or comments really. I also asked a colleague of mine who generally deals with like reviewing all of these types of ordinances that come in. So I asked him also to take a look at it. And a couple things. In section, and unfortunately I don't have the draft with me, but 275.1, there's a definition for underground district. And I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead. I just thought I would be the first to start. Chuck.
Yeah, go ahead.
And the way I think it's defined as some type of zoning district, but it's not a zoning district. So I was thinking, or we were thinking maybe that should be described a little bit differently. And basically wherever that word underground district is used in the draft, sort of describe it as an area with underground utilities, because I think that's what the intent is. I don't know, did anybody else notice that or?
I wondered what it was. Well, yeah, I guess I noticed it.
Define it.
Yeah, they did. And
Yeah.
I could understand the definition, but I've never seen that term used before.
Yeah, and then I think it almost makes it seem like it's its own district, right? So our thought was that maybe we look at that, take underground district out and just describe it, because I think it's saying like where, you know, where something is proposed, where there's a development that has an underground district, and I think what that is meant to mean is where they have underground utilities. I think.
So I don't know about the other townships, but in Wrightstown's Saldo, we define that utilities need to be located underground. And I don't know if Newtown and up to Mayfield are similar, but it's maybe more appropriate to say that the location of these facilities are gonna, you know, agree with our Saldo requirements.
It is in here, in any zoning district, rural utilities are required to be placed underground on a non-discriminatory basis.
But that's new developments, right?
Just decorative, it's under decorative poles.
Correct.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're saying for the drafts. I thought you were saying it's in the ordinance right now.
No, in the draft, yeah.
They refer, underground district is referred to, comes up somewhere in the in the ordinance itself. That's why they're defining it.
So the issue is only with the word district, correct? I mean, I don't have a problem. We change the word district.
And maybe we don't, I don't know, maybe we don't need that definition. Maybe we can just describe it as in an area with underground utilities and make the provision mean what it means when they use the word underground district.
Underground utilities district. But underground utilities would be good for me.
Couldn't that be defined somewhere
Yeah.
in more detail?
Yeah, we're looking at it, just one sentence, what an underground district is.
Under the definitions.
275.1.
Well, that's one thing.
You have a list of them?
No, not our whole list.
No, no,
Just a couple other
no,
things.
if you do, and if you have something, you know, in your notes or something in writing somewhere, send it on down if you have it, or it's in your office. It would be helpful to see.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I just have sort of a listing of
Okay,
of
what's
sort of
next?
things I wanted to mention. That's one of them, and I can look closer and then send you the exact provision.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm sorry,
That's
I
okay.
thought I had the printed out version. I printed it out a couple times and it's so lengthy, that I think it's the same one from last time, and then I couldn't find it. One other thing, in terms of terms, I think they used the word law, and it was mentioned or recommended that why don't they use the word ordinance where appropriate. I don't know if that's a big issue or not. I don't think it's a big issue, but just to think about.
Right, right on the next page, it has it in 80422. By enacting this law,
804.1.
804.2.2. Okay, it's right there, yeah, above that, so.
Yeah, I'll see it. The purpose of this law, right?
And then by enacting this law. in the next-
Yeah.
I think they might use it, throughout here and there, so. And then. one other thing, actually I only have two other things to mention. In section 804.4.2.1.1.1. Siting of tower-based wireless communication facilities. Am I reading that right where it says where they are prohibited, like they basically have a section for each township? So, the one that ends in 1.1.1, it says they are prohibited in Newtown Township and shall only be permitted in the following tax map parcels or on the following tax map parcels or subportions thereof by conditional use. And that sort of is the same for Upper Mayfield and Wrightstown in the subsequent sections. Is that, like, I'm reading that as a contradiction. They're saying they're prohibited, but they may only be permitted. Like, I'm just thinking as the wording goes, that's sort of confusing.
That was also a comment that I made in the.
Okay. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, because I think we should say positively that these are allowed or permitted in specific districts or locations or tax parcels. Because I agree, that was kind of a contradiction in terms.
Right, okay.
Only in the following.
Sorry, Dennis?
Say only in the following parts.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so then the only last thing I really had, and I'm not sure if it's referenced somewhere else, but further on in the document, section 804.5.2.1.1. Citing for non-tower wireless communications facilities. They reference districts, permitted in districts 1, 2, and 3. And I wasn't sure what they were. And that's set up the same way, one section for Newtown, one for Upper Mayfield, and one for Rice.
I wasn't sure what they were.
Wow. It's hard to find things. It's like a novel.
Yeah, I wish I should have a page number and I don't.
Can you just say that again? 805, what?
It's section 804.
804.
5.
Page 31.
Good luck.
I don't have pages. Okay.
804.5.2.1.1.
Page 31.
Yes. District 1, District 2, and District 3.
Unless I missed them, I didn't see them.
It's underground. Yeah, and each one of them, each township has. District 1.
I read that as him asking for clarification as to which district we are going to allow them.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily a zoning district per se,
So we-
District 1, but
Fill in the blank.
We
Fill in the
fill
blank,
that in.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I can do is I can just sort of list them and send them out, just so you have them written down.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, it's confusing trying to recite the section numbers.
Yeah.
But basically, there are a couple other things that my colleagues sort of mentioned, like there's reference to tribal lands. I don't know if that's important that we strike that kind of thing or not. I think it's probably just like a boilerplate thing, right?
I guess it may be relevant somewhere, but perhaps not here.
But I agree, it's important that we make it clear where they are permitted.
Mhm.
Can I ask a dumb question? That has to do with non-tower. WCF, but, does that mean like, facilities located on top of water towers or on private property? For example, a neighbor here has, a year or so ago moved out of our development because she complained about the 5G antennas on top of the Newtown artesian water tower, which is, about 100 yards from my house. It seems that these regulations do not apply to private property. Is that correct?
Well, these regulations are for small facilities. Those are a different technology altogether. It's an earlier version with it or larger. And can be put on those kinds of structures. And that's why you see them, they're leased, they lease space on the towers.
But it's true. I mean, private homes, they don't need, they just put them up. They don't need to come to us for anything.
That's right.
So this applies to a different
Hang on.
technology, this
No.
ordinance?
No, that's not true, right? You can't just put a 5G tower on top of somebody's house.
No,
Okay.
You can't
I-
put,
I- I
you can't
think
put 5G, you can't,
No, but
you can't put any cell
4G, you can't put
tower.
any kind of.
So
cell
you could put an
tower.
antenna, I guess, for your TV or whatever.
Yeah, but that doesn't, that's not covered
Yeah.
in the section, or either, any of these sections.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. I mean, is this ordinance applied to some kind of a new technology, different technology, or,
yes,
that's what I heard.
the small facility, it's,
Small facility versus, well, what exactly is a small facility? I mean, if it's on top of the Newtown artesian water tower, for example, it's just a small antenna on top of the tower. It seems small to me, but it doesn't apply to that.
I think, I mean, they're in the definitions, the tower, the non-tower, and the small wireless facility. So that's why the ordinance is broken up.
they're handled, but they're all handled differently, and
Yeah.
those are all predate this ordinance, because this is all originally federal law, and then Pennsylvania passed a law 2 years ago.
But John, I think you're right about the non-tower is attached to things like water towers
Yes,
Yes.
on private land. And the-
Right.
And the small wireless facilities are the ones that you'll find on telephone poles in the right of way.
So basically then, all the things in here that you might have in here, for example, the ability to inspect the radiation coming from them, from the township, does not apply because it's on private property, I guess.
Are you talking about that for a residence?
No, I'm talking about, let's just use the Newtown,
Artesian water? Okay.
yeah, the tower there, where there are many antennas, and according to this resident, I mean, I don't know, I didn't go over there and ask him about it, but she claimed that there was 5G antenna there and it was making her sick, and she actually sold her house and moved out. Now, she claimed that was because of that, but I don't know. But if there is one up there, and the township has no right, according to go and bring its own experts in to measure the radiation from that antenna. Is that correct? Because it's on private property?
No, I mean, these are public, even though it's on private property, there, you still need to go through the process with the township to get
Permitting
approval.
process.
Yeah, you have to go through the permitting process. So whether it's a.
So
whether it's a
how does
tower-
that get, how does it get approved? Go through the township. Say it's on the Newtown artesian water tower,
Right.
which is pretty
Yeah, right.
close to the elementary school. And I've never seen anybody come to the township asking to put a 5G
Process.
antenna on top of the water tower. which is close to our residence and close to the elementary school. I never heard about the permit.
That's why we're doing this ordinance.
Yeah, this ordinance will address 5G. There's nothing else on the books that addresses 5G.
But we don't, but we
So I
don't,
guess it's
but we
a,
don't even know if there's a 5G antenna on the tower.
We wouldn't know. Yeah.
Well, just as a case, say, just as an imaginary case, okay? If there is one up there or not, basically, it doesn't matter. I mean, if they wanted to put one on top of a private building, can they do it without us being able to test the radiation coming from it, for example?
No.
According to this ordinance, we have the ability to
One is.
test for radiation, is that correct?
Correct, when the ordinance is passed and invoked, so yeah, they would have to do that as part of the process. I would say that even now, for 4G, 3G, the earlier variations of this technology, if there's a reasonable concern about radiation, we can certainly make an inquiry. But if at this point, they weren't required to get, they may have gotten permits many years ago. And I'm not sure that we've even ever asked for that information, but I think we can.
Okay.
And that would be something that would have to go by letter and, you know.
I mean, Joel is pretty specific that we have the ability to go back to the carriers and say, look, we want that information.
Yes.
Now, I'm sure they're gonna give us a report that says everything is fine. And we even today have the right to go and have it tested if we
Yes.
don't believe it.
So, our disadvantage is that we don't have the expertise in-house to
Correct.
deal with that.
Right.
So one of the recommendations that I think we have to agree among ourselves, maybe among ourselves, we need to sort of find an expert so we can retain one when we need one. Not on staff, yeah, joint that, you're not gonna need it that often. But to have somebody we can call when we need it so that they can come out and do a study for us very quickly, make some testing done, and we can trust their results.
You know what my worry is then? So you're telling me that somebody, multiple people, whatever, say, you know what, I don't feel well, and we're gonna have to pay for expensive testing for like anybody requested. That's why I brought it up on the last call. I think it's a real can of worms.
It could be.
Well, I don't,
Required to test.
All right, all good.
I mean, there's nothing in here, nothing in the ordinance that says that we're required to test.
All right.
And there's nothing
Right.
existing law that says we're required to test. We just have the ability to test if we wish to.
Okay, we're not required. Good.
At this point. However,
right, it's
you
not
may
required.
want to. The question is, what are the with antecedents? So what are the triggering mechanisms that we should require before we actually spend that money to bring in an expert to do the testing? And
Well,
if
that's a separate matter from the ordinance, right? That has nothing to do
Yeah,
with the
it's
ordinance.
a separate matter but it has to be coordinated at some point. Because there is I understand your concern. It has to be more than somebody saying that they're sick, but you need some medical evidence, something like that. And the doctor saying this could well be from this, it's reasonable, but more likely than not that this is what the cause is. And that may be a triggering mechanism. Otherwise, we don't know how we use it, what standards do we use to spend the money on an expert?
Yeah, I know it could be complicated. I just want to know if if we would have the ability, not necessity to do testing on private property where these things may be installed. That's all. I don't know if this needs to be part of the ordinance relating specifically to installations on private property versus does this ordinance just cover installations on rights of way and public property?
Yeah, that deals with, again, a lot of other technologies that's not involved in this ordinance. This ordinance does give us the right to act, to ask these questions and require testing. And we can ask the utility to do the testing, and if we don't trust their results, we can do our own test. But it's difficult that the the law that this is based on, the FCC, does not directly give us the same latitude with the earlier technology. We can still ask for it and require it, but a lot of the stuff has been there for decades.
I don't care about the earlier technology. I'm just
okay.
talking
All
about
right.
5G.
Then 5G, this ordinance gives us other control over that. We can ask for them to test. If we have a reasonable, even if we don't have a reasonable, we can ask them to test all their facilities. If we don't believe it, we can do our own testing.
So for just as an example, not saying there's an antenna up there, but say there was a 5G, the most recent technology antenna on top of a water tower that's privately owned. Do we have through this ordinance the ability to require that we run a test if we wanted to?
If in fact it's 5G technology and they applied for a permit, or if they got it installed before we passed this ordinance, so they didn't have to have a permit, which I'm told that hasn't happened yet, but if it was there, theoretically, yes, if it's 5G, we could ask them for testing information, or we could test ourselves.
Okay, I mean, that's basically, the other question I had, Dennis, I think you mentioned that this would be taken up, considered by the planning commission, our planning commission. Is that true?
Not this one, it was two other.
It will eventually.
But it will be.
Ah. It will eventually. Okay, yeah, great. That's all the questions I had. I mean, this is a big document. I appreciate the notes that Chester sent around. I tried to read some of that, but there's a lot of things going on. And so I would appreciate the help of our planning commission to really dig into this and interpret it when it comes to doing that.
Will do.
Thank you.
Anything else, John?
Nope.
I'd like to see three things. I don't know if it's doable or not. One is a chart of dimensional requirements. So maybe they're in there, it's all, I mean, I like charts and lists and bullet points. Because it's difficult to like go back and forth in the sections. But you could give us a chart where how, what are the height requirements, what are the volume requirements for the antennas or whatever. For each of the like tower, non-tower, small wireless. So that's the one thing, if that could be done. The second is some kind of indication on a map of where these parcels are that will be permitted.
It's gonna be every right of way, so it can be anywhere.
Okay.
That's maps, so everywhere there's a right of way, it's potentially there. Because we have to wait for the utility to come and submit an application for a permit, then they let us know where they want to do it. Normally, it's gonna be for several of these, because the whole thing about 5G, these small facilities, is they don't cover very much area.
But with the right of way, that'd be for the small wireless.
Yeah,
But how about the tower and the
oh,
non-tower?
that's not part of this ordinance.
Yes, it is.
Oh, well.
Well, once someone applies too, they got to go through the whole process with the township. So I think we would address everything.
They have to get a permit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just like to see. Yeah, where the applicable places are.
There was, I think, one of the notes that Joel said, mentioned mapping also, is, to map these parcels out so that you see whether or not you're being exclusionary in terms of, where you were locating things. I don't think so. I mean, because like for our tower-based things, we have specific parcels, but we also have along the Pico power lines, which bisects the whole township. And it might even be in Newtown the same way. So
Across the street from me.
yeah, so it kind of like covers a lot of area, but it wouldn't be bad to, mark those parcels off so that, we can see what it looks like. And then I think keeping Dennis's comment, even the non-power based facilities, if we know where they're located. If we have any, I know there's none in Wrightstown, but. Yeah, that would be good to mark those up.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a way to get that information or not, since people haven't had to get permits. Or maybe they have,
Find out.
yeah,
In terms of a map for the, I mean, if you want, I could ask our GIS department. To sort of map out in terms of the parcels. I know you have a good idea where they are, but is that part of what you're asking for, Dennis?
yeah,
Um,
that's what I'm asking.
I don't know if they would, I'll ask if they would have, by chance, they know where that information could be in terms of the existing smaller ones. Or the existing towers, but. If you want, I can certainly ask our GIS to put some stuff on a map, just.
Could you feedback why don't we do this? Take the parcels that are already listed in the ordinance and then, you know. Put them on a map, okay?
Okay,
Just so we can see where those parcels are.
we can do that.
Okay. Then the last question I had was around what's the benefits of doing it by conditional use versus special exception? So I think somebody mentioned it in here. And then, Chester, I think.
So conditional use is the item comes before the Board of Supervisors. So your. Conditional use, it would come before the Board of Supervisors as opposed to special exception, or we go to the zoning hearing board. It just depends upon how much you want to participate. If it comes as a conditional use, you almost have to sit there and be quiet, and you're not an active participant in the hearing. If it goes as a special exception, then the zoning hearing board is hearing the case, and the township can take a more active, challenging role to try to hold the subscriber to account. I mean, we've done it. We've done once. We were doing a conditional use for a housing development in Wrightstown, and we sat up there quiet, but we hired Steve Harris, I guess, at that time, to act as represent the people of Wrightstown to kind of keep the developer on his toes, because we were kind of stuck that we couldn't ask the questions. So that it all depends on how the boards want to do things. Do we want to just sit there and make the decision, or do we want to actually try to influence the outcome?
It may not be something we have to decide yet tonight, but before the ordinance is done.
Yeah, my preference would be a special exception, because then the zoning hearing board would make the final decision, but we could try to influence the outcome.
And then you have the right to challenge it.
And we have the right to challenge.
You can send your solicitor to throw a copy,
Yeah.
other than just being passive.
Yeah. I could go for that.
I think generally, with other time we've made that the same decision, and we've generally opted for special exception, just to give us a little bit more.
We did with E30.
Yeah.
I think that's a special
Yeah.
exception.
And it's unnatural to be sitting.
We're
as-
gonna need time to think about that from our side.
Mhm.
So either way it goes, the applicant has to follow the ordinance. Or ask for a waiver.
Correct.
Ask for a waiver? Variance?
You're talking about,
Yes.
oh, not for when, for a permit, no, there's no waiver for a permit.
So ask for. They have to follow the ordinance that we're writing. or ask
Correct, whatever the
for-
procedure is that we lay out.
Or if they don't want to follow it, they can go to the zoning hearing board and ask for an exclusion or whatever word you want to use. Correct?
Variance.
Thought that was the right word.
I was making sure what you're talking about, because the general rule is that once if they're making a permit, or applying for a permit and it's denied, then all this will happen. If the permit is granted, then none of this will happen.
So just thinking out loud, my concern is if someone comes in and asks for a long list of variances, I want to try to understand where the real control is. So what we're really trying to manage here is not we want to put one pole in. We're trying to manage when they come in and blanket the area.
That's more likely to be the case.
You know, the idea is, where do we want to be on that? Do we want the zoning hearing board to be standing there making the decision? Or do we not want to go that way? That's, we need to give us a thought. But if we go conditional use,
You're still gonna, if you're opposing it, then you're gonna have to basically hire outside counsel to represent the township. Because the board of supervisors is acting as the judge and jury.
Kind of what Newtown's doing right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So both of them take time, both of them are expensive. The question is, who do you want to make?
so I don't want to speak
decision?
for the entire Upper Makefield team here, but I think we want a little time to think about that. We may prefer conditional use, but I'm not sure.
Okay,
So I'm not saying we're not
Uh,
all in agreement yet, but
talk about it. Sure.
That's why.
I have a couple of things.
Yeah.
Okay, so on page 19, it's section 804.4.
Hold on a second. Let me get to page 19 if you
Okay.
want.
Top paragraph, wind and ice.
Page 18. Here's 19. Okay, where is it? 804.
The first one, wind and ice.
Okay, gotcha.
So I was wondering if we should, this add something about floodwaters, especially with the changing climate. Make it elevated to a certain level. And then on page 21, I had the same comment for emergency power supplies, that they should be elevated to protect from flooding as well. That's the second paragraph, 4.15, page 21.
Emergency power supplies.
Mhm.
And what's your question, please?
I think we should just say they should be elevated to be protected from floodwaters.
Do you want to say not placed in an area at risk of floodwaters? I mean, they'd probably do that anyway.
Well, even if it's in an area that's not at risk, we all saw what happened.
That's true.
Maybe some kind of height requirement for that.
That's what I'm thinking.
Just keep in mind, if you increase the height of a generator,
become more.
you got noise that are gonna.
Yeah, but if it gets involved in a flood and dies, then it's
Well,
everybody.
again, you would, I mean, that's probably would be part of the. I mean, if you're putting it in a floodplain, which you shouldn't be, then. You shouldn't have that issue.
Well, I can tell you my front yard was a little flooded with the last rainfall. I know that was exceptional, but with climate change, I think we really have to consider that areas that don't normally flood, we didn't have any trouble with the basement or anything, but the water coming across the lawns was pretty heavy.
So the language should basically, with due consideration for potential flooding. That's what basically saying.
I don't know that you want to designate a height.
Yeah, I'm
but I
not saying,
think-
I'm not sure a height really solves the problem. Yeah.
Whatever the engineers or the supervisors say.
I mean, that's something more engineers could address, right?
Hopefully, I would think so. But the question is, if they're, depending on where these are going in, do you want to wait for the engineer to get involved in each of those? I'd rather that they use their engineer to address it and then give us certification that you've actually done it the right way. So that they're responsible for it, not us.
Right.
Sounds
Well, I mean, it's in their interest to put it in the safest place
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think they would probably.
All right, but it's a good point.
Okay, on page 23, I think it's a typo or it's a grammar error. The last paragraph, 804.4.21.3 on page 23. If the tower base CF, FWCF, accessory facilities and wireless support structure are not removed. Because that's a list there.
Is,
even though wire support structure is the closest item, you're talking about three things.
Yeah.
The base tower, the accessory, and the wireless, so it should be R. You know that.
I was.
I will inquire about that. Yeah, I think you're right.
Intense.
Page 27. Well, this is what Lisa was talking about. 804 at the bottom, 804.4.27.1. Did we discuss that paragraph already?
Not yet.
Ground mounted equipment associated to or connected with a tower based shall be underground or screened from public view using stealth technologies. Well, if it's ground mounted, how can it be underground? That just didn't make sense to me. I don't know if I'm reading it wrong, but that's what.
Guess you could dig a hole, attach it to the ground and then. It'd be underground, that was,
So it's mounted to the bottom of the ground.
yeah. Bottom of the hole.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Ground mounted equipment station shall be underground. Yeah.
Yeah, it's confusing.
You're screwed from public
Okay.
view.
This was just while I was reading this, so the last paragraph on page 28. The work, I guess there's a bond for $75,000. Just want to know if in today's standards, is that really enough? Because everything's going up in price so drastically.
That is controlled by the federal legislation, I think, but I will inquire about it. I think that we don't have the latitude to change it, but maybe Congress should do that.
Good luck.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I think that's where the number is coming from.
Who's gonna call Congress?
Paul Bryant, just catch.
Chair, the number's coming from their lobbyists. That's the number.
Well,
Congress put it in.
well, yeah, but it's not that lobbyist anymore because this was done
All right.
years ago. This is coming from the FCC and statute.
All right, so again, this is just something that I read on page 29. When I was reading this, the very last paragraph. And they're talking about an inspection of the tower to ensure compliance. It says that the last sentence, the municipality and or its agent shall have the authority to enter the property upon which a tower-based WCF is located at any time upon reasonable notice to the operator. But what if they have to go in there immediately to check something because we're not getting, I mean, how much time,
It does say in the event of an emergency.
well,
Reserve the right to enter the property upon which a tower is.
At any time,
without-
without any
without
notice.
notice. I think it's covered. It's just,
the next sentence covers it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm almost done.
okay,
Maybe can we delete that one about unreasonable notice?
I don't want to stop playing around with that, but
Okay.
I think it's pretty clear.
Okay.
What's the next piece?
I,
Page 30, is that?
no. Page 51, and I just, I don't even know if I should bring this up because I can't remember why I wrote this, but under maintenance, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 section. And I just wrote a note to myself. And I don't know where I picked this up, but I wrote a note that said, can the municipality do or change the WCF operators if the latter fails to perform?
Which section you're looking at? Which one?
Page
I
51,
got that, yeah.
the main section is entitled maintenance.
Yeah, okay.
I just had the question, can the municipality do or change the WCF operators if the latter fails to perform?
Uh-huh.
So. Does that mean a performance guarantee? a network performance guarantee? So I don't know.
I'm thinking, but the way I'm interpreting it is that have to be more drastic than that, because you may have a bond or something that you can use. But if the operator himself is not responsive to it, do you have the right to be replaced or at least bring in an emergency operator to handle the situation? If the operator is not doing it.
Why would you care?
Are we talking about?
That's why.
Maintenance or operation?
It
So,
was under main.
so she's bringing it up as maintenance, but I'm questioning, should that be? I think it's a fair question, right? So if they're not maintaining, what right do we have as a municipality? But maybe the question is broader than that, and it just simply says performance guarantee is a network up.
Yeah, but do we care? Do I care that the cell system isn't working properly?
You know,
Why?
number one for emergency responders. You want your cell service work.
Yeah, but they're not gonna, I'm just thinking that it's a business decision. I mean, if Verizon doesn't maintain their equipment, their customers are gonna leave Verizon and go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's in their interest, I would think, to keep it operational.
Stranger things happen. Stranger things happen in this world.
For sure.
They were my comments.
Anyway, let me ask the question of Joel and see what he says about that. Maybe there's an explanation that we're just overlooking, because I don't know. I'm not just gonna say we don't need to have one, because I'm not sure. Maybe it's addressed somewhere else. I'm not sure either. So let me find that out. I'll ask.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is there, I mean, maybe this is part of your question, but is there a downside?
The downside always is when you assume responsibility for making a repair, you're also assuming liability for any of that damage caused by that repair. And yeah, and even though legally you can pass it on to the regular operator, if there's gross negligence and the person you bring in to make the repair, you can't waive that obligation.
But which is why I was saying performance guarantee, because I wouldn't want to have us
I hear
be
you, yeah.
responsible for them.
Yeah, we shouldn't be, right. But I understand the question. That's why I want to find out what's the finer point of all of this. And maybe it leads to that we have to be sure that the operator has adequate insurance. If they, and that we have access to where listed on their policy as a municipality where they're located. Kind of thing. So we have a contractual ability to address the problem rather than being completely outside of it.
Are you still focusing on the maintenance part of it versus the whole operation?
I'm trying to respond. She
I found it in the maintenance
Yeah.
section, that's what it was.
No, I get that,
But I think
feel
Tom
like-
is raising a
Right,
large
he
question.
says that's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
But would insurance cover, for example, if their network fails? Would that,
They would have their own insurance. I don't know. We wouldn't want to have the insurance because that's not what we want to be responsible for. But we could be named insured if we're damaged by it. So that gives us some
Okay.
protection.
all right, gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There is a section on insurance and
Indemnification.
Yeah.
Easy for me to say.
Yeah,
My 2 cents, I mean, I want to be careful that we don't put ourselves into regulating the utilities. We don't have an ability to regulate them. Anyways, so, I mean, we need to be concerned that a tower that's there safe, that it's operating within specific norms. And that it's maintained and it's removed when they're finished. Okay, but if the tower is working at 50% capacity, I don't care. It's not my responsibility as a township to tell the cell tower, the cell provider, how many customers they're gonna have or.
yeah, I don't think we want to involve ourselves in the day-to-day operations of the utility.
We can't
anyway.
Yeah, and we can't manage our cable.
That's right.
systems
Right, yeah, we
properly.
can't do any of that. I'm interpreting the questions as being sort of emergency questions. You know, what if things are they're not working at all? It's not working in the fire department, it's not working in our emergency services. We rely on them to provide maintenance for it. They're not doing so. What are our options in that situation?
I can pretty much guarantee they're covered under some sort of federal law.
Well, they are.
Amplified. I mean, what are you gonna do, sue them? Because if they make an attempt to come fix it, and it's all in operating order and it goes down, and
They have to raise the question, it's a legitimate question. I'm not sure if the federal legislation that's already 30, 40 years
I think
old.
it's out of our wheelhouse.
And keep in mind, whenever, and if you follow emergency situations and you see where your hurricane went through or tornado went through or whatever, within a day or two, the cell providers have these pop-up cell towers all over the place because they want to maintain, the cell service. So even if their primary site blows up, they're going to be out there tomorrow with portables to try to maintain service in the area.
Agree. But even if they didn't, I don't know how much power we would have. I mean, there's a reasonable amount of time they have to restore it.
Yeah.
But usually they want it and they're interested to do it anyway, so they usually do it.
Well, they're gonna follow the federal legislation on all of this, and even if the state legislation follows the federal legislation. We're not gonna have any authority beyond what's granted by federal law. But let me find out for sure if there's any place where that is an exception to that. And my guess is there isn't, but let me find out because I don't know the answer.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other comments?
Nope.
What are you gonna do, Jerry?
I'm gonna send put together a memo on all of this. I'll share it with you so you can make sure I covered everything. You can, and then I'm gonna send it to Joel Winston and ask him to, these are the questions that are coming up. Besides the fact that we want this to be integrated into our ordinances, not be standalone. Please give us, responses that I could bring back to the group. And that's what I'm planning to do. And hopefully I'll have it back by next meeting. I think you should be able to do that. I'm not asking him to come to the meeting.
Anything else we want to do with this ordinance for tonight?
Yeah.
Anything in the comprehensive plan? We're still waiting for
Yeah.
Upper Bayfield.
The
The planning commission is finished with it.
Yeah, okay, so it's in Tom's desk.
Well, what did you pass along to the supervisor?
They haven't gotten it yet.
What are your recommendations gonna be, if you don't mind sharing them?
Oh, there's a lot of them.
Oh, okay.
Want to hear that, Natalie?
We do things, not that nobody else, I shouldn't say that, but I kind of like tear the.
Well, listen, Newtown was not gentle either.
Get everything out of the way.
Yeah.
Was trained.
Yeah, that's okay. But I just want to let them sort of have a sense of what's gonna happen, that way we can figure out how long it's gonna take and.
Well, you know what, this is how we approached it. After we did all this, every month, we did a chapter, principle, et cetera. Then Will took all our comments and he made a spreadsheet with what page it was, what the comments were. And we went through that and he's going to redline the plan. That was the last thing that I heard. And I think, and I know it's going to go to the supervisors because I've asked about it. I mean, I know it's going, but did they give you a date on that yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
So you're actually recommending substantive changes to the body?
Not substance changes, but changes. Just additions, more suggestions.
Okay, do you know how Newtown handles? I beg you want to just give her an idea how we handled it?
Well, we each member took a section and reviewed it, and we spent a lot of time on it.
Yeah, and at the end, we basically make them into an addendum to the plan, not that we didn't make changes to the plan per se, except in one area with to make the fire service area. comport with current legislation that had recently changed. But in all other regards, you basically had an addendum to the plan with all the points that Newtown was interested in. And our priorities wouldn't have to be followed by the other municipality, it would just be relevant to Newtown, so
Mhm.
everybody wouldn't have to. Because if you change the body, then we all have to take another look,
Yeah,
go back
well,
to the process.
Okay, well, maybe the letter that Will sent out to us with the proposed changes
Mhm.
would be what, you, the Board of Supervisors.
The letter, when you
That
said,
makes-
Yeah, there were a lot of items in there that pertain only to Newtown too, and not you guys.
And that was, we did that
Yeah.
intentionally, just because we didn't want this to go round and round and round and round.
Yeah.
And we wanted, we had some of our,
I think if you look at when, I'll talk to the supervisor.
Sure.
When, Will's
I'm-
letter was,
yeah.
these are the changes we suggested, and we looked at them soon, I'll tell,
It's gonna be a no-brainer if the change was specific to Upper Makefield.
Yeah.
But if it impacts all three townships, then it'll.
I don't think any of this stuff is gonna shock you. I don't. think that they're gonna
Well,
tell
yeah,
you
but-
this.
what's our response have to be based on the law?
Mhm.
If you're changing substantive that's gonna affect all three municipalities,
Mhm.
then all three municipalities have to review it again
All right,
and
well,
approve it again. That's not, and that may not be the worst thing, but it takes extra
you know,
time.
all right,
So
so what would, I'll talk to them.
So you've done your job.
Mhm.
You've moved it on.
Mhm.
Let us take a look at it.
Yeah.
Figure out the right way to go.
And if you want to talk to us about it, you can always call us and we can make some suggestions and how to, or at least
Yeah, and I was gonna add Kathleen, because you're really good at editing things. If you see typos or if there's
Oh, we did.
mistakes like
Yeah, but
that.
there,
you
we
wanna-
only have one though, Lisa, only one. That's,
That's always the process, but no, if you want to send those to us, we can, that's something we can adjust. It's not any.
Right.
yes.
it was only one.
Okay.
That's really
That's
good.
that's a.
I think it's wonderful considering how long it was.
Yeah.
Excuse me, did you say when you would be able to make those changes, get it to your Board of Supervisors or whatever is necessary?
I think it's going to the supervisor at their next meeting. Is that what I heard or?
Nope, that's not what you heard. What you heard is that the planning commission is done with it.
Okay.
So it'll be going to the board of supervisors soon.
Oh, okay.
So let us
I'm just
see what
being-
it is.
And how long has this been going on, by the way?
Long, John.
I want to say
This is
through 2019.
Yeah.
it's getting longer than the Lower Darlington Road trail. You know, it's supposed to be every 10 years. What is it now? 2009 versus 2024? That's
I think the
15
fact
years.
that there are three municipalities involved, it was a lot of material to look over. And for us in Newtown, I think because we take on so much of the development, commercial, the residential, it was very, it was long and we had a lot of conversations, a lot of disagreements, but yeah, we work well together, our planning commission, and it was time consuming. I mean, I think we could go on for another couple of years with it, really.
No, I wasn't
Well-
saying you were taking too long. I appreciate the work that you guys did and your speed at which you did it. So I'd just like to see this process finished.
Okay, John, we know what you're saying. We get it.
Got a problem with rights count. That's what I'm hearing.
We've been done a long time ago.
Anyway, we're, it's really close to the end at this point, really is.
All right, anything else you guys want to do tonight? Okay, Jerry, you want just comment on the what we need to do with respect to that text change of the ordinance that you formulated?
Yeah,
immediately?
I took today. Newtown was recently served with a text change for. We've got validity challenge and two text changes. One, the validity challenge is from Krishna Real Estate that wants to do apartments on the bypass. And we're fighting that. We don't think we hired a special counsel and we're doing that, but BET, which is Bruce E. Toll Enterprises, has filed a request for a text change to a build apartments on Sycamore Street. They're sort of behind where the 7-Eleven is. We're gonna,
Historic district.
and we submitted everything to the Bucks County Planning Commission. They have sent back review letters, very supportive of the township, which was incredibly helpful. But you need to take a look at it also as part of the jointure. And hopefully, I sent Chester today, the text changes requested and the Bucks County Planning Commission review letter. Please review both, but particularly the review letter from the Bucks County. So you understand where we're coming from and where we'd like to have this body end up.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you to send the note out back to everybody.
Okay,
all right?
all right.
And just to clarify, can you also clarify if Newtown Township is in support of it? That's the other thing. Because Newtown, I mean, if it's like, what do you think? And you being,
No, it'll be very clear that we're opposed to it. We're opposed to both of them.
okay,
And the review letters from Bucks County Planning Commission was very much opposed in chapter and verse, opposed to letter, really very supportive of the township's position. And that's, we're hoping the jointure will sort of support our position in opposition as well.
Because where Toll is proposing, I mean, literally right across Sycamore Street up center is where the boroughs redevelopment is going on with apartments and so it's pretty intense. What
It will be.
they're proposing there, yeah.
This isn't something we've seen yet. You're gonna send it to us?
Yeah, we haven't seen, we just got it in the past several weeks.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so. I will send it to I'll send it out to everybody again. Everybody who's here that I think I have all your addresses. I just send it to Tom and Chester as chairs. I can do it either way. Or I can send it to your township managers if that suits you.
yeah, send to the managers and have them
Okay.
distribute
All right.
to the
I'll
board.
do that tomorrow. No problem.
Because it'll go through the process with, if it's gonna go to the planning commissions for comment or,
Okay.
to the boards and so forth. Okay. All right, I think we've covered it. Any public comment? No public comment? Good. And so our next meeting will then be the meeting of September the 7th at 7:30. Anything else, guys?
No.
All right, then we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, all in favor? Motion carries. Have a good one.
Good night, everybody.
I don't.